Just let us know when we're ready.
Britt?
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samantha Byers, and I am the interim Measure 110 Executive Director and Adult Behavioral Health Director at OHA, and I'll be assisting with facilitating today's meeting. The Oversight and Accountability Council welcomes and encourages community input. Members of the public are invited to submit public comments or get on our interested parties email list by emailing oha.measure110@oha.oregon.gov. That email address and more information about the council can be found on the Measure 110 OAC website. Our OAC members have asked that OHA and other staff who are present in the meeting space introduce themselves in the chat. Please share your role with the agency, and if you are a subject matter expert, your area of expertise. And with that, I will turn it over to Melinda, I believe, for opening remarks.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for being here for October 9th, 2024 Measure 110 meeting. Today, we're going to have executive session, and then we're also going to be going over the application review training. Only required for confirmed reviewers and will be recorded. Now I'll pass it to Sarah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to take attendance. Amy? Carlos? Is Carlos there? Caroline already let us know she wouldn't be here. Dharma? Is Dharma here?
Here.
Thank you. Hubert?
Here.
Hubert here? Here? Thank you,
Here.
Hubert. Hunter? Is Hunter here? Jackie? Is Jackie here? Jonathan?
I'm here.
Thank you, Jonathan. Keisha?
I'm here.
Thank you. Leticia? Is Leticia here? Linda? Is Linda here? Melinda, you're here?
Here.
Meredith?
Here.
Thank you. Morgan?
Here.
Thank you. Nicole? Is Nicole here? Anisha? Is Anisha here? Okay. Ron? Is Ron here?
Here.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Brian?
Here.
Thank you. And Sabrina and Zeb let us know they wouldn't be here today. And Stan is here. And
Let's check again from the top, just because I
Okay.
believe Amy came in.
I've got
I'm here.
Annalise.
Okay. And anybody else that was missing.
Okay, Amy's here. Right, what about Annalise?
Here.
Thank you. Carlos, I believe was going to be a little late. And then Hunter, is Hunter here? Jackie? Leticia?
I think Leticia is running late.
Okay. Linda? Nicole? Anisha? And that is it.
And I see Nicole online. I don't know.
Okay, maybe she's having problems. I'll keep an eye out for her, see if she pops in here. So I will hand that back over to you, Melinda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So now I'm going to read a statement for the tri-chairs. Yeah. The Oversight and Accountability Council will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602H to consider attorney-client privilege advice. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or otherwise disclose anything said about these subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. We will return to live stream following the executive session.
Britt, will you let us know when we go live?
You're ready to go live? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And we are back to the public meeting. Appreciate your time. I'm going to open the floor to the council right now for any additional items. We do have the training scheduled today for those council members that are planning to participate in the review process. But before we begin that, I just wanted to open the floor.
Is this? Or are we just in open discussion? Sorry, I missed.
Yeah, you can just start talking, Morgan.
Just start
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
Do I need to give context or I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with.
Well, in order to clarify our
Okay,
formula
so
process and the authority the OAC has regarding the formula, you wanted to make some comments.
yeah, so to clarify the funding formula and the process by which we've made that, the OAC does not have rulemaking authority, but that is our jumping off point. I mean, we had to start somewhere, otherwise it's such a mess with our 36 counties and doing a burn in each county. So I would like to make a clarifying motion. So I would like to make a motion that clarifies that our funding formula is a starting point for our funding decisions.
Guideline.
What's that?
Guideline?
Yeah, okay. So the funding formula is a guideline, and it is susceptible to new information that we take in about ongoing needs, revisions in the availability of funds,
And the amount being requested from each jurisdiction.
and the amount requested by individual funders and counties on a whole.
Thank
Just
you,
to make
Morgan.
sure,
Do we
can
have a
have you type
second?
that in the chat?
We
Yeah,
have to
I can second that with a comment that we are, just to be clear, that we are not making a vote to change the formula. We're clarifying that the OAC has the ability to modify the formula if it chooses.
Can you please repeat the motion? I'm sorry, this is the first time I've done it and I'm a little slow.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that clarifies the funding formula is a guideline, a starting point upon which the OAC makes decisions, but we will also include other information such as the availability of funds, what the requesters have requested as individuals, and the total amount for each county, as well as any new information regarding needs.
Second.
We have a second. Any comment? No comment? Then I think we can vote. Sarah, are you taking?
If we could make sure that if she could read back the motion so we make sure that it is clear,
Yep.
and then we'll have Sarah take attendance and you can vote at that time.
And Sarah just put the motion in the chat for everyone too.
I did not get the very end of the motion, but I would be happy to get the rest of it. I apologize.
So we have a motion on the table that was second, that Morgan put forward. It was seconded by Ron. The motion is that the council would like to clarify that the funding formula is a guideline, a starting point upon which the OAC makes decisions. And then that's all it says right now.
Sam, this is Shannon O'Fallon from Oregon DOJ. I mean, I think, right, the meeting's being recorded. I think unless council members have a question about what they're voting on, I think, we can go ahead and
Oh,
right, and vote and make sure that in the minutes, et cetera, that the exact wording that Morgan said earlier are captured.
okay. Thank
I
you.
see if Keisha has a question.
Keisha, your hand's up.
Yeah, I'm just a little unclear on why we're making a motion for a statement. Isn't it just a statement? And the OAC has no say so on really financial decisions around uh grantees. We don't have the ultimate authority, right? I'm just a little unclear.
Sam, you want me to take that?
I-
Yeah, Shannon O'Fallon, again from DOJ. Keisha, if I'm understanding your question, I mean, I think that if what the OAC wants to do is clarify a previous vote, that sort of doing that by a vote makes sense. Whether, sort of whether or not it's necessary, maybe there's arguments to be made there. But to be clear, it is the OAC that has the ultimate decision-making authority with respect to individual applications. So OAC is going to make those final funding decisions on the applications that were submitted and are being reviewed now. And if I didn't answer your question, then I apologize and happy to jump in if there's more I can add.
Keisha, did that help your question?
I mean, kind of, because OAC has no part of negotiations, so I don't see it has that we have the final authority on how much on the financial decisions.
Well, the OAC will vote, though, on the funding recommendations put forward. And ultimately does have the final spending authority.
That was it. That was just my concern or curiosity.
Thanks, Keisha. Any other comments? I just want to note, Dharma, I don't know if you want to just speak to what you put in the chat to finish out the portion of the motion.
Sure, I was just summarizing as well as I could in writing. It helps me to see it. But the new information, so that would include new information that becomes available, such as changes in funding available, what had been requested by applicants. I believe Morgan used the word requesters, but I just for clarity, I said applicants, and then changes in need. If that doesn't capture it correctly, though, please clarify, because that's my understanding.
Thanks, Dharma. So for one final full read, the motion that Morgan put forward and that Ron second is a motion that clarifies that the funding formula is a guideline, a starting point upon which the OAC makes decisions, but the council will also include new information that becomes available, such as changes in funding available, what has been requested by applicants, and changes in need.
All right, Amy, how do you vote?
And I think with that, we are ready to take the vote, Sarah.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. Carlos?
I'm going to abstain. I need to really, I'm processing all of this. It takes me a little bit of time to understand it. But I am abstaining for now. Thank you.
Okay. Dharma,
Yes.
how do you vote?
Oh, I voted yes, sorry.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Did not see the message there. And Hubert, is Hubert with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I vote yes.
thank you. And Hunter is not here. Jackie is not here. Jonathan?
Yes.
Thank you. Keisha?
I'm gonna abstain too. I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. And Letitia?
Yeah, hi, it's Leticia.
Leticia,
I
sorry.
vote yes. It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda is not here. And
I'm here.
Linda is here. Okay, thank you.
I'll vote yes.
All right. And Melinda?
Yes.
Thank you. And Meredith?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you. Nicole?
Yes. I vote yes.
Thank you. And did Anisha come in? No? Okay. Ron?
Yes.
Thank you. You're voting yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ryan?
Yes.
Thank you. And Sabrina is not here. Seb is not here. And that is it.
What's the vote?
We have
11 yes and 3 abstain.
Thank you.
Is that correct, Sarah?
I've got 9 yeses and 4
Okay.
abstained.
Okay, sorry, I missed the one,
Okay.
so, and added it to the wrong place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, this is Shannon O'Fallon from DOJ. Can we go over that again? Because I was counting 11.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let me make my window bigger. Okay. So Amy abstained. Carlos abstained. Dharma voted yes. Hubert voted yes. Jonathan voted yes. Keisha abstained. Letitia voted yes. I'm sorry. That was a yes for Letitia. Linda voted yes. Melinda voted yes. Meredith voted yes. Morgan voted yes. Nicole voted yes. Ron voted yes. And Ryan voted yes. You two were both right. My window was too small. I couldn't see everything.
So it's 11-3?
Correct.
Yes, 3 abstentions.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that concludes this part of the agenda, and we can move forward with the training portion.
Excuse me. Did it pass?
Yes.
Melinda, go ahead.
I asked if it passed.
Yeah, the motion passed with 11. Yes.
With 11, yes.
Okay, well, nobody said that.
My apologies.
Melinda, are you ready for us to move towards the training?
Yes, absolutely. So we can end the executive session and go back into the public session. Thank you, everyone.
We're already in the public session.
Yeah.
Oh, well, remember I left. That was quick.
Yeah.
All right, then we are in the public session and moving to the training portion for those council members that are planning on being reviewers. And thank you for everybody else who joined us today.
Well, I guess that concludes the meeting for everybody to help out with the referral.
I'm sorry, Melinda, say that one more time. You were just cutting out a little bit.
Okay. And so we have an application reviewer training coming on now?
We do.
From Jason and Jennifer?
Yes.
I'm Dan Rayfield. Why do Oregon's frontline police and Planned Parenthood support me for Attorney General? I partner with
Great, thank you. Yeah, so
law enforcement to
we
get
can just
hard
pull
drugs
up
off
the
our
slides
streets.
for the
I'll
training
protect
that'd be
abortion
wonderful.
rights from national attacks, and I'll always work.
All right, so welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. Thank you for those of you that volunteered to be reviewers in our new RFGA that we're going through. We really appreciate you being willing to review and being here for the training today. We are a little shorter on time than we had originally planned, so I'm going to try to speed through a couple of the slides that hopefully aren't anything new for you, and make sure we get through all the content first, and then try to get some time for questions at the end. So a little housekeeping, we do have a couple moments. We may, again, skip through one of them a little quicker, but we will at least have one moment at the end for questions. We do ask that you, if you have a question, just drop it in chat with your name and email address so that we can make sure we do get answers sent to you afterwards. We'll collect all the questions and send them out by email afterwards. And just note that some of the training things may be subject to change as things go as we move forward, but this is our best understanding of the process as it is now. And then trying to think here. We will have a Smartsheet form available, so we will send a link to all of you. You'll have that available. That is where any questions about training will come in to us. The M110 program team has a group of people ready to answer any questions you do have on the reviews. We do just ask that you keep those questions to be about the process or high-level program type questions. Any specific questions about the application or application information can't come to our program team. It will have to go to our single point of contact, and we will make sure we share her information. That is Krista Montano from OCMP. She's the only one that can actually review the content of any application, and so that we need to make sure that those type of questions go to her, but the program team will be happy to help with anything about the actual review itself, the RFGA, or program questions in general. Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Thank you. So contents today, program introduction, that's the section I'm going to breeze through a few of the slides because they were a little bit more intended for our OHA reviewers that are joining us from other programs, so that and well, you probably don't need as much of an introduction into M110 or what the OAC is as some of them might have, right? So we're also going to go over the funding opportunities, go over the program review components, review process itself. At the end, we'll have a slide of resource links and then a slide about technical assistance and how you can get that through the process. Next slide. So program introduction, again, I'm not going to read all of this. I think most of you are familiar with Measure 110 at this point. So given that you are the council that oversees it. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave this one. We'll move quickly through this one, but do know you will get a copy of this full slide deck. You will have access to it as well, so you can always look at it later in your leisure. But let's go ahead and move to the next slide at this point. Thank you. And so again, this slide was just talking about who you all are, the Oversight and Accountability Council. We just wanted to make sure that our internal reviewers really did understand that the OAC is the authority for all funding decisions. The program will be providing recommendations to the OAC, but that you all will, in your roles as the OAC, not in your role as reviewers, but as your role as the council, will be making all final funding decisions. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. All right, and again, just defining behavioral health resource networks. These are the networks of organizations in each county that you all fund. One thing to note that in our rule changes that just are going live, or what just happened and are going live, we did combine, so you will not see supportive employment as its own service category anymore. That has been combined with peer support now, so that any requests for supportive employment type work will be coming in under peer support. So there's just one less service area, but no less work, right? We're still funding all the same work, just one less service area to roll that all up into. Yeah, and let's go ahead and move forward. And I guess actually just real quick on that last slide, just a reminder, and you all should be familiar with this because you did make the decision, but just a reminder that we are not funding capital purchases or any sort of renovations this time around. Rent and that sort of thing will still be allowed as a service and supply cost. So just to note that. So allowable program activities, this is just going a little deeper into the to the various service areas. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. There in the slides, there are links to all of the rules, so you can make sure that you're up to date on the most recent definitions of all the service areas. Sorry, there's a lot of chat going on. I'm getting a lot of beeps and I'm trying to turn that off so I don't get distracted. But so I will allow, just recommend that if you have any questions about how service areas are defined, definitely utilize the rules and then let program know if you need any further clarification via that smart sheet form. Next slide. And just a reminder that all services provided through the Burns must be evidence-informed, trauma-informed, culturally specific, linguistically responsive, person-centered, and non-judgmental. So just a quick reminder there. Let's go ahead and move on. And actually, another reminder on that, all those terms as they apply to the RFGA, they are defined in the RFGA document. So if you have any questions on how those terms were defined, you can find that in the RFGA, in the document itself as you're reviewing. Some definitions as we go through. Applicant, how do we define applicant? An applicant means one of the following entities serving Oregonians that submits an application in response to this RFGA. So organizations, local governments, or any of the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon can apply. And then what is the purpose of this RFGA? The purpose is to seek proposals from applicants to increase access to care statewide and improve outcomes for individuals actively using substances, engaging in substance misuse, or having a substance use disorder. This RFGA invites all eligible applicants to apply, especially those that serve communities disproportionately impacted by substance use disorder and the war on drugs. Next slide. So applicant criteria. Recipients of grant funding will be required to provide all services and supports free of charge to anyone needing or wanting them. To the extent consistent with applicable law, recipients may seek and obtain reimbursement for services provided to any person from an insurer or entity providing insurance to that person. The OAC may award these funds to multiple applicants and may prioritize those that provide culturally or linguistically specific services or culturally or linguistically responsive services, and that address the unequal burden of substance use disorder and criminalization. The OAC must issue awards in all 36 counties. Applicants must be able to give examples that clearly show how they currently or will provide low barrier services described in ORS 430-3892E and OIR 944 Division 010 to people in their community in a trauma-informed, non-judgmental, culturally responsive, and linguistically appropriate and non-threatening way. Applicants must show how they intend to provide services, whether or not that person is still using drugs. All right, so next slide. So just as a reminder, this grant is set to be active for 4 years. It's estimated to run from July 2025 through June 2029. We just spent some time talking about the funding formula. It is there as an attachment in the RFGA, but it made clear that it is subject to availability of funds. And as reviewers, we're not asking reviewers to look at the formula. It's just there for information, because we did ask that applicants base their budget ask on their program needs, not necessarily on the caps in each county. And knowing that the council will have the final decision on how much money goes to any one entity. Yeah, so let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say here. No, I think that's good. Go ahead, next slide. All right, so some timelines before we get into the actual application and the review process itself. So we're already partially through this timeline at this point. The application RFGA was opened in August. It just closed here October 4th. So right now the apps are going through the minimum submission requirement review. That will, some applications will fail on the minimum submission requirements, and that will generate denial letters. And that starts our first of 3 appeals processes that this RFGA has. Recent legislation did add an appeals process at 3 different points to our RFGA decision tree. So that's the first one. We'll send out all the denials. That begins, they have a time limit on how quickly they can respond, and then the director or designee will make a decision on all those appeals if we have any. So all the scores that make it through all the applications that make it through MSR or any applications that successfully appeal will be sent through to scoring. That's where you as review panel participants will come in. There is a minimum score in the rubric. So 14 will be the minimum score. If an application doesn't meet the minimum score, that will cause a denial. And that is our second appeals point. So any application that fails to meet minimum score, we will send out a denial notice. They will have a time limit to reply to that and appeal if they wish to do so. And again, the OHA director or designee will respond to that appeal. So any applications that make it through the scoring process will be reviewed by the review panel for recommendations to the OAC in whole. And then those recommendations will be passed along to the OAC for the process of final funding decisions. So once all the final funding decisions are made, anybody that the OAC decided not to fund will have another denial point. That's where another denial letter will be sent out, and which initiates our final appeal point. So there's again a time limit on how quickly they can respond, and then the OAC will get to decide how to respond to those appeals. And just, I skipped over a date there. We're hoping to have all the scoring and reviews done in November so that we can start bringing those to the full council for decisions and funding as soon as possible. So then getting through all of that, hopefully by April, as our intent, we'll have our intention is to have intent to award notices sent out by April, know who we're trying to fund, know how much we're funding them, and then go ahead and collect our new budgets, the budgets from our new partners, execute contracts by July, and have a continuous funding in Measure 110. So that is the goal and the timeline that we're shooting for as a program, working with you all. And yes, next slide. And I know I kind of flew through some of that because hopefully some of it is just review for you as council members. But definitely go ahead and pause, see if there's any questions at this point. Great. And next we'll get a little more into the actual application and review process itself. So seeing no questions at this point, let's go ahead and jump right on. Thank you. So there's a lot of information on this slide. This is our program solicitation components. Try not to be overwhelmed by the number of attachments and all that. We do have, and we will go through later, my colleague Jen is graciously going to go through our scoring map, which is a document that maps out where anything you need to score or look at, where you can find it in the application. So we've done our best to provide all the support we can through this process. But so to be considered for our evaluation, each application must contain each of the following elements. A complete application form, which is our attachment A, which will be included in the review. That's where a lot of your information is going to come from. Application form requirements to include all attachments. There's a list of those attachments below. There is a DTR SF application workbook, which is our attachment B. That's your other major attachment that you're going to be interacting with and getting most of your information from. A complete applicant information and certification sheet. There we go. That is not something you'll have to review. That will be done. That will be reviewed prior to applications getting to you in our minimum submission requirement review. And then all same as the complete disclosure and exemption affidavit. That will also be covered in the MSR, and you won't have to worry about that being there. So each attachment in the application submission follows a specific naming convention. It's imperative that we do open every attachment and review it in full. And we ask that you do review all of the solicitation documents prior to being signed applications, so you can get an understanding of what each section, the requirements of it were, and what we were asking for in that section. And then just a list of items in the application. We'll go over those items in more detail as we go through the next slides. Next section. Yep. Thank you. So notice. So the following pages review the application components more closely. Process instructions for review will be included at the end. Please note that all items, including the instructions, are subject to change. Your technical assistant team will notify you of any adjustments. All right, so next slide. So jumping right into the application itself, our attachment A, which is going to contain most of the application high-level information. This is where we're going to find basic information about the applicant, proof of registration of the Oregon Department of Justice charitable activities, if that's applicable, will be provided there, as well as any of the other registrations that are required. So just a part of attachment A that we'll be looking at. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Also part of attachment A will be the county section. It identifies which county the applicant is intending to provide services in. And it's important to note that there's only one county allowed per application. Applicants were allowed to apply for multiple counties, but they needed to do that through multiple applications. So each application will be county specific. Next slide. All right. So then there's also a series of attestations. So we will be reviewing to make sure that they have checked all the boxes here. They have attested to all of these things. And this is also part of the attachment A. I'm not going to go ahead and read through all of these individually at this moment, but again, these slides will be provided to you, and you will have a sample application in the documentation that's provided to you as well. And so just I guess the one thing we do want to note here is if there is anything missing, if something hasn't been attested to, or there is anything missing, we will want to refer that application back to our single point of contact, Krista Montano. And again, we will provide her contact information to you, but we want to refer back to the single point of contact to make sure that this application actually should have made it through the minimum submission review. Next slide. And then probably the most relevant for the review purposes of the attachment A in the application is the proposed services section. So an applicant must choose at least one of the service areas, but may choose up to all of them, right? So they can choose one to the full list, but do have to have at least one, and they're choosing which service areas they do intend to provide services in. And just as a reminder, earlier on in the presentation on slide 6, we did have a link to all of the rule descriptions for these service areas. So if you're ever questioning what is actually, in the context of Measure 110, what do we mean by peer counseling and support? You can go to that definition to get further clarity. Next slide. All right, so a couple more sections here in our attachment A. The organization information and project scope. So this section will be narrative nature, and it's comprised of 11 questions in total. So please do read the requirements in the application of what we were asking in each of those as you're reviewing it. And then, yeah. So then also we have our fiscal and technical narrative section. These are also questions that will be narrative in nature. There's 4 questions in total there. And if there's any questions about formatting, or if this application is meeting requirements, again, you can refer the application back to the single point of contact, since those things should have been caught in our minimum submission review. Next slide. So moving on from our attachment A to the attachment B, our DTRSF application workbook. So there's multiple slides in this workbook, and we're going to want to, when we're reviewing applications, we're definitely going to want to look at all of the slides, or sorry, not slides, tabs in this workbook. There we go. So we're going to want to make sure we're looking at all of the tabs. This first tab here is the budget tab. So this is where programs can indicate how much money they'll need for their proposed operations. It is split up into different sections. You can see it may be a little bit small, but in the purple section here is general program costs. So these would be costs that are not specifically related to a specific service area, but are instead just overhead type costs or general costs that are just needed for that operation to run in general, right? And then as we scroll to the right, you can see the yellow section screenings. If this slide was live, we could keep scrolling to the right in the workbook and see the rest of the service areas and have the cost breakdown for each of those service areas as you go across. So we'll be able to have a good understanding of, how much they would need to run screening, which would be basically screening plus program if that's all they were doing, or versus however many service areas they were applying for. So it will be important to make sure you're reviewing the whole workbook. You're scrolling and to see all of the data points that they're providing. And And also just want to talk about a little bit with the workbook and the rest of the tabs in the workbook that we'll go over next. We're not scoring the budget directly in the review. The budget, milestones, a few of the other documents that are provided are used more as a holistic look at the program to really see if what they're asking for makes sense. It's all relatively reasonable and ask that we're getting, you're getting a good return on investment off of that program and what they're suggesting. So it's used more qualitatively in the recommendation section of our review. So these documents will support whether or not a program, and specifically a service area for a program, is going to be recommended for funding or not, but not scored directly in the scoring rubric. Yeah, let's go to next slide. I guess actually one more thing, sorry, if we can go back real quick. I did forget to call out one thing. So just want to make it clear that that it is broken out by years. So there are 4 years for each section. And so just it will have the total costs over the whole period broken out by each year. Thank you. Now we can move on. All right, so this is our milestone chart. This will be another tab in the DTRSF workbook. So this is where they can list any deliverables, anything that they're planning on doing. It will be listed per service area. We are asking for the estimated individuals and services provided and any estimated dates of completion. So again, this is part of that with the budget and some of the other pieces of documentation where we're looking at it to get a overall look at what the program's asking for, whether it's reasonable, whether it makes sense, whether it's a good return on investment, that sort of question, to feed into whether or not we should recommend that service for this particular individual. And something to just consider when you're looking at milestones is scale and intensity of services. For example, someone providing something like doula services or something like that, which might have a much smaller count of individuals served versus like handing out syringes or something like that, right? Just so think about the relative nature of what the goals and of the project is. Next slide. All right, so another tab in the DTRSF workbook is the past M110 recipient form. If a partner did receive money from us from the OAC in the first round of funding, they should fill out this form. It should be all up to date at the time that they were submitting the application. We will make sure we have a list of who was a prior M110 grantee to cross-reference for this form. We do want to make sure we're paying attention. There's a couple narrative areas where they get to talk about the work that they did. So we'll want to read that in full. Again, this is not scored directly. It's just part of the overall look at the program. And we do want to call out that we're not intending to give any preference to people who had prior funding. We want to make sure we're considering new organizations just as much as existing organizations, but this is just a chance for the existing organizations to talk a little bit about what they've already done with M110. Next slide. All right, so now we get into the actual scoring sheet. So the scoring sheet will be part of the DTRSF workbook. It will be another tab on the workbook itself. And this is where you will score the application and in full. So the first section of the scoring sheet, and we're going to have, I think it's 3 or 4 slides in a row here. They're all the same tab of the scoring sheet. So the scoring sheet is one tab. These are just sections as you scroll down the scoring sheet. It's broken up into multiple sections. So this first section is just a recap of the minimum submission review. So we're just going to do a quick glance through to make sure that nothing was missed in the minimum submission review, that all the documents that are supposed to be there are there. With all of our scoring sections, we will refer to the key at top, sorry. There's the scoring scales section on the left here, where it shows what are the possible scores, pass fail. The numeric scoring is a 0 to 2 scale. We have some yes no questions, and then obviously NA, and then there's a description of those scores next to it. So if you're having any questions on what a score means, that's always going to be right there on your scoring sheet. So the MSR section is all pass fail. And one thing we do want to make sure is if there is a fail, if there's a section that we were going to mark fail and send back to this single point of contact because something wasn't included, we just want to make very clear the notes that we're leaving as to what was left to support that minimum submission denial and to support any appeal that might come out of that. And that's true of all of our scoring. We want to make sure we're making really great notes about any scores we give, any recommendations we give, because specifically because of, well, both so that eventually the council gets a good explanation of the recommendations and what was reviewed in the application, but also so that we can support any appeal decisions and any appeal process that needs to come through or that does come through. Yeah, let's go ahead and move on. Next slide. All right, so organization information and project scope section. So this is the narrative section we talked about earlier in attachment A. So this will be a scored section. The scores do range from 0 to 2. A 0 means does not meet criteria. A 1 means meets some of the criteria, and then a 2 means meets all of the criteria. So it's a pretty simple scoring system. We're not asking you to make do anything too difficult, hopefully, here with the scoring, but just really making sure that people follow directions and answered the questions in full. So we'll be scoring this section again, 0, 1, 2, and ask that you make really great notes about why you chose whichever score you did choose in each section. And it is important that every question is scored and has a note, right? So they believe there was 11 questions here in this section. So we will want to make sure we have 11 scores and notes for all 11 of those questions. Yeah, next slide. So next section of the scoring sheet is our fiscal and technical narrative. I believe this was a four question section. It's also it was a narrative in nature, and again, we're doing the 0, 1, 2 scoring scale. So similar to the last one, we just want to make sure that we are providing a score for all 4 of the questions and providing good notes for every score we do write down. Let's see. Yep, next question. And then this is really sort of the meat of the score, or the what we're doing in our review, right? The previous sections will give us, if anyone does not meet 14 points, they will fail to meet the minimum score. But this is where where the reviewers will be able to make their recommendations to the council and explain why they're making those recommendations. So this is going to have a section for every service area. We do want, for every service area they applied for, we'll want either yes or no for a recommendation and notes of why we're making that. If they did not apply for a service area, we will just put NA in that section, and we do not need any notes on the NA. So if they didn't apply, you don't have to worry about that. But otherwise, just really being clear why you do or do not think that these service areas should be funded for this particular entity. And again, looking at the whole of the DTRSF workbook, all the information that's provided in that, including and also any information that's in attachment A that you scored, kind of looking at that all holistically to really answer like the questions of whether what they're asking for makes sense, whether it's a good idea, whether it's something that will benefit Oregonians, it's a good return on investment, all those sort of questions that you would be concerned about as a reviewer, and with all of you ultimately as the council making the funding decisions. And then I think this is where we're going to go ahead and take a pause, and I'm going to hand things over to my colleague Jen so she can walk through our lovely scoring map that hopefully will help you out as you review.
Hi, everyone. Jennifer Poor again, she, her pronouns, OHA, OPA 3 with the Measure 110 team. Let me just get this all situated for everyone. Do we all see my screen okay? Someone gives me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Fantastic. Before we get into this particular tool, I wanted to ensure that all of our reviewers, and I believe that we have 9 in total and 1 on standby, and perhaps 1 pending confirmation of actually wanting to participate now. You should have gotten items of interest in regards to this meeting and the review process to include these documents as of yesterday from Sydney. So that's the 8th via email. If you did not receive that via email, if you could please just drop your name and email into the chat so I can ensure that I coordinate that to you offline after this meeting, that would be fantastic. With that being said, let's get into our reviewer application scoring file reference map, which, yes, we needed to use absolutely every single one of those words. This particular tool is a reference item for everyone. We, when doing a mock application review, came to understand that because a lot of our application documents are attachments, and it can be overwhelming, that it would be really, really helpful to our reviewer folks to be able to crosswalk those RFGA questions with the document in a reference tool to better assist with the process. We highly recommend that you read this whole entire map in detail. Also, in addition to that, the solicitation, the rules, any relevant statutes prior to beginning your application review. That way you can feel good about navigating the applications as a whole. And know also that our live file names do have prescribed extensions. To be completely honest, I'm not really positive how those pieces parts will come to you, but I'm going to assume that it's going to be via email securely with these types of live file name extensions. And we've put the example of that at the very top so you can start to familiarize yourself with how that looks. So the example we have here is Marion is in the county. Recovery is possible as a example entity name, and then project scope as the part of the application that is in reference to. So this particular map is not going to use those file extension names. They're going to use the file reference material that is actually built into the solicitation. So that is an important piece to understand, but it is broken into all of the different sections. So here we have at the very top our minimum requirements section that breaks down all of the pieces that would be required to be a part of an application to qualify to move forward to the scoring piece. So all of these different columns are to help guide you through those pieces. We've got the minimum scoring requirements here on the extreme left, which is next to the files to reference. So it should tell you as you go through each piece on the left exactly what you should be cross-referencing or cross-walking as you do those pieces in your review. The pass-fail section has a little bit of reiterative kind of directions, so I apologize for the redundancy, but we want to make sure that we're repeating our directions for your convenience. And of course, we have our guidance regards to notes. As you can see here in our minimum scoring requirement piece to move into scoring, you actually do not have to add any notes unless something is missing. And again, if something is missing that would have been a minimum requirement to move into scoring, we need to let Carissa Montano know, who is our single point of contact. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. As my colleague Elizabeth said, if it doesn't, please drop your questions into the chat with your email. And cruising right along, we're down to our organization, information, and project scope questions section. And this is pretty simple. There's really only one area of interest to reference for this section, and that's the project scope attachment. The score, as Jason alluded to earlier, there is the built-in scoring reference in your scoring sheet, and this map guides you to that. And in notes, again, I'm going to repeat because it's super important, especially going into the appeals process and into the funding decision process, that we have a justification for your scoring decisions based off of those scoring scales and the description of scores that are related to each score scale. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, you can drop your questions in the chat. There's 11 of those questions in total. And then we move into our fiscal and technical questions, which is exactly the same situation as the section above it, only you're going to reference a different file. So that particular file is named here. And again, we want to follow our scoring scale and the related descriptions of scores when we're putting those numbers on each question, which there are 4 in total. And then for notes, again, in this section, you must provide a justification for your scoring decision based off of those scoring scales. Moving right along. And again, as Jason said earlier, the funding recommendation service area really is one of the most vital pieces to all of this. And underneath our first column here, there are some items of interest via bullets that you're going to want to consider when you're looking at the application as a whole. So it's really, really vital that we're doing an absolute comprehensive review of all of the attachments in order to weigh those subpoints that are in these instructions here. So make sure that you read and understand each of those subpoints and that you're absolutely positively reading every single attachment that is available, every single tab in the DTRSF workbook that is available in each application prior to making these recommendations for the service areas. Just like every other piece of our application, when it comes to scoring, we want to make sure that you have detailed notes on why you chose each recommendation and highlighting any particular areas of interest or concern. It would be very helpful if you could actually use some of these bullet points as well, perhaps in your areas of interest and concern. But again, just make sure that you're marking yes, no, or NA for each of those service areas. So there should not be any blanks in the services pull down area of the scoring sheet. In this map, we have direct links to each and every service rule if you have questions about what is included in each service area. And of course, if you've got any questions about the process or this map, please feel free to use our Smartsheet form to ask for technical assistance. And I'm going to go ahead and let Sarah share again and hand it back to Jason. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Jen. Great. And if we can go ahead and move to the next. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So the review process. So how this will work for everyone, we will circulate a conflict of interest form. You may have actually already received that. If not, you should be receiving it shortly. Please look in your email for that and get that back as soon as possible. But we will be receiving or circulating conflict of interest forms prior to assigning applications so that we can make sure we're assigning applications appropriately. So the applications may have due dates based on a county prioritization. You may receive more reviews if any adjustments need to be made due to the availability of other reviewers, or in the case that applications are rejected and it's successfully appealed. It is imperative to complete your reviews by the due dates if given, as the OAC will be making funding decisions concurrently to the review process, and timelines are tight for this program to have continuous funding available. And so we really ask that you just stay in communication with us. If there's anything, we understand life can come up, things can happen. If you're having trouble meeting any due dates, deadlines, or getting through your reviews, please just be in communication with us. Let us know so we can work with you. And I guess conversely, if you're feeling like you have lots of time and are available to have more reviews, let us know that too, and we may take advantage of that. So for OAC reviewers, applications will be sent to you via secure email with instructions. When you're done reviewing, please securely attach the DTRSF workbook from that application and send it to our single point of contact, Carissa, with the subject line, and it's #secure #, the unique identifier from the application, county, entity name, and then complete. And it is important that you include that #secure # on there just to make sure it is being sent securely and correctly. And so for everyone, there'll be a final review panel meeting for our counties once we're done scoring all the applications within a county. These will require extra time. However, we are not able to have those scheduled quite yet because we're still in the minimum submission review period, so we don't know how many applications are actually going to make it through to scoring. So as soon as we can get those set up and scheduled, we will be sending out invitations as soon as possible on those. Next slide. So resource links. We've in the slides, and again, you will have a copy of these slides, but we have linked the relevant legislation and rules that apply to this RFGA. The ORS 43389, the bid solicitation itself in Oregon Buys, the smart sheet that you will use for contacting the program team for any technical support. And then the resource and tools will be, I believe, made available to you. It won't be a link on the slides, but it will be made available to you through email, since you won't have access directly into our shared files. And then, yeah, just remember, reach out to us if you have any questions. That Smartsheet form, we are dedicated to getting responses back to you as soon as possible. And we will be also circulating frequently asked questions that come out of that Smartsheet form once it's sent to everyone anytime we do have updates to frequently asked questions. So next slide. I think we have one more slide. All right, so I think I was jumping into this slide a little bit already. So technical assistance. So it's important to note that we can only provide technical assistance through the Smartsheet form. If a direct request is received, we will be directing you back to the Smartsheet form so that we can track it and guide it through the process correctly. Your role as a reviewer is crucial to the integrity of the review process, and so we might need to maintain privacy and confidentiality with these applications. So for that reason, our program team cannot assist with anything that will require identifying applicant or application information. Any questions that would require actually looking at the application or looking at information from the application or discussing information from the application, anything like that would need to go to the single point of contact. Otherwise, questions that can come into our team through the Smartsheet form are things that are technical about the review process. How do you use a specific form? What does the question mean? And also broad to program specific information. Let's see. So yes, I was already alluding to this. A frequently asked questions sheet will be distributed whenever we have an update. So we'll make sure you're kept as up to date as possible on all new information as it's coming through. And just reiterating that all applicant and application specific information needs to go to our single point of contact. And next slide. So final pause. This is actually we're just about done here. Just pause again, see if there is any questions at this time.
That makes more sense. Thanks.
Not seeing any. We can go to the next slide if we want. So just really want to thank everyone for being here, being willing to sit through the training, be willing to do the reviews. We appreciate the work that you do on this, both as reviewers coming up, and then of course, as always, as the council yourself. So thank you so much for letting me be here with you today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jennifer and Jason. This now concludes our Measure 110 meeting, unless anybody has anything else you want to talk about. Hello?
Not hearing anybody.
Have
All
a good
right.
day, y'all.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye.